Welcome to Frankly Speaking with Sendra D, where we dive deeply and help you wake up to the essence of what it means to live a real, authentic, affluent life. Beyond the balance sheets, the bank accounts, the private jets, the political offices, into the realm of inner wealth and personal power. I'm Sendra D, your companion guide on this trajectory of truthful self-mastery as we celebrate your individuality and your sovereignty.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to another fantastic episode of Frankly Speaking with Sendra D. My name is Sendra D. I am excited today. I know you hear me say that every time, but I am really excited today that I have a seasoned leader in the business world, in the world of technology and finance and also compliance. So this is the first time I've brought out someone who's more behind the scenes, because you've heard me bring out a lot of CEOs who are very public figures. As you know, when you're the CEO of a finance firm, you're in the front. But this CEO is more in the back because he specializes in fraud detection. So let me further introduce Mr. Jose Merino, who is based in London. And I'm going to do my best to introduce him. But of course, you who are looking at this video can see that he has built up not just intellectual acumen, but his wise counsel is worth listening to. So let me begin by saying that Jose is CEO and founder of Rewire Holdings, a fintech software company as a service SaaS ecosystem based in intellectual property, and he has 8 patent applications. Serial entrepreneur with decades experience in telecoms, mobile, blue chip, executive experience, business, finance, startups, and trade sale exit. An ex-vice president of operations of Philips Consumer Communications in the United States. Prior to that, former director of wireless at the French International Alcatel, and prior to that, a microchip designer at Bell Telephone in Belgium. Co-founded Sensei Limited in the UK with New York hedge fund Elliott Associates as lead investor, with an exit through a trade sale to VTech Holdings of Hong Kong. Mr. Merino is a past article contributor in the world prestigious American Engineering magazine, IEEE, and an author of over 15 granted telecoms patents. Mr. Merino still co-owns with a New York hedge fund a package of 11 granted telecoms patents. Wow, can I just say? Wow. And so some of Mr. Merino's patents dates back to 1992, which were owned and used in the fixed line digital switches of the multinational Alcatel. Languages, five, Dutch, Spanish, English, and of course, conversational French and German. Should I test his French, audience? Tell me, do you think I should speak in French? Should we do a, closed caption in English and make this whole video in French to test Jose's knowledge of French? Monsieur Merino, bienvenue. So welcome, Jose. It's such a pleasure to have you. I am so impressed just by reading it. I'm actually absorbing that information, but I wish I could actually vicariously know all that in the world of finance and telecoms and technology. So I'm going to let you tell the audience what is not on this page that I just read. What would you like the audience to first and foremost know about you?
Well, for me, the important thing is why I made the switch from telecoms, because that was most of my life and most of my career for a few decades in telecoms. And then I made the switch to finance, basically to financial technology. The main reason was to do something good. It's not that we're doing bad in telecoms, we're actually providing communications. But like everything in life, you can use for good or for bad, any technology.
Absolutely.
And in the finance technology, what we basically saw in the marketplace is, and I'm talking back in 2019, fraud was already kicking in at scale. little did we know how bad it would become. So over the last few years, the fraud has grown exponentially. Just to give you a rough idea of our own tests, we made a test that lasted about 18 months and that ended last year. We found that on transactions and on amounts of money moved through bank accounts or cards, 5.4% was fraud. So when you know how much banks move, you can imagine how big the number is. Now, in recent articles, actually from just 2 months ago, this was a year after our own tests, the numbers are about 14%. It's outrageous.
Incredible.
It's absolutely crazy. What that means is so many people are being defrauded. That, number one, it's not fair. Number two, somebody is having a benefit on behalf of somebody's grief. Okay. And we thought that is wrong. So let's develop technology for that. And that's why we founded Rewire Holding. We were lucky because in the first year and a half, we got to know the former CEO and chairman of MasterCard, presented him some ideas of the problems that we saw and the solutions that we thought we could do technically. He liked them, and I'm proud to say he's actually part of our cap table. He's a minority. So that was a massive, I would call it like a boost of confidence of what we could.
Built the momentum.
Yep. So if I just quote a couple of things that probably your US viewers and the European viewers in particular will understand is, if you look at a report from the FBI states scammers are increasingly reporting on SIM swap scams. Reports.
Say that again. Reporting on
SIM swap scams. So somebody swaps your SIM or my SIM onto their own name. Okay, how do they do that? They take information on your social media. They get in contact with your mobile operator and convince them that you lost the SIM, that they need to swap it and give them a new SIM. And they don't even need to send a physical SIM. They can just do an electronic SIM on your mobile. So it's actually quite quick and instant. So that started in 2021. That was the first year they reported it. Already in that first year, 1,611 people were defrauded by SIM swapping, okay, on their mobile phones. And that accounted, according to the FBI, of $68 million in loss to crime by just those 1,611 people. It's
incredible.
Okay. Now, another thing is most of the payments of banking, either whether it's an outgoing transfer or you pay by a card, they typically have three things in common. The security is either a PIN, a two-factor authentication, or a biometric.
Oh, what's the third?
Biometrics.
Biometrics. Go ahead. Yeah.
Actually, European regulation got ahead of the US. I'm like you, Sandra. I do not like too much regulation, but you do need a minimum baseline.
Oh, I agree. We definitely, because humans are not honest. Naturally, we are, but actually programmed not to be honest.
Yeah. Unfortunately, that's the case. So the European regulation forces two out of these three, either PIN, two-factor, or biometric. So they can choose which of the two they have to apply on payments, on card payments in particular. There are very few exceptions who don't have to comply with that regulation. It's already enforced in Europe. Now, when you think that they can actually swap your SIM, and that number that I told you before, that was 2011. That number increased, and I tell you how big it increased. This is a press article by Matt Binder of August 9th, that recent, just a week ago.
Which publication is this from?
Matt Binder is an article publisher. You can find it easy. I can actually send you the article.
Send me the link, please.
You can have a look. It's recent as a week ago. And it states nearly 3 billion people are affected by recent data breach. And the data breach was at a background check company in the US. So a large database compiled, filled with billions of users. Credentials were published last month, which makes it even worse. They sell it to other people who then use it to scam or defraud others. Customers that included in those 3 billion database were AT&T, ADT, and a countless of other major firms. So when you combine, the SIMs can be kind of taken over. They don't even need to go to social media. Just affected databases is already 3 billion. So the chance of getting defrauded is becoming every time higher and higher. That's why the curve
Absolutely.
is not growing anymore linear, it's growing exponential. Okay. Now, give me a data from the US. VentureBeat article of 7 June states financial institutions face $3.1 trillion in exposure to suspected synthetic identity fraud for US auto loans, bank credit cards, retail credit cards, and unsecured personal loans. It's the highest level ever encountered. These are crazy. So TransUnion, again, the US firm, they found suspected digital fraud is nearly 14% of all newly created global digital accounts last year. Why do they focus on digital accounts? Because people want everything quick.
Absolutely. That's why people are chipping themselves now. They don't even want to carry credit cards. They want to have it in them. And for the global audience who's not familiar with TransUnion is a credit reporting agency that Americans actually have to be, controlled by, and they tell you how worthy you are of getting money from the bank. So for those of you outside the US, that's what that is. Feel free to Google it. So go ahead, Jose, continue, please.
So when you hear all these figures, they are like 3 times worse than what we tested a year ago during 18 months. Okay. So like I said, it's exponential. Technology we created to counter those things are an anti-fraud platform. This is where we got the figure from 5.4% to 0.11. But the kick-in of artificial intelligence then made it even worse. Okay. So we're lucky we're maintaining that level, but we had to create new technology on top. You really can't stay still.
Because the criminals are one step ahead of the people who are slow pacing because of budgets, low staffing. Fraud is not a priority in major institutions, I'll be honest with you. It's more, they're focused on revenue making, and they figured they'll hedge their bet. I mean, would you agree with me that they need to really beef up their fraud team to be ahead, not just when it happens? Because I think right now, most firms are also just there, and when it happens, they'll deal with it, but they should be doing more preventative measures, right? So that's where you come in.
Absolutely. I mean, you're absolutely right on that. Unfortunately, not all, but some even big firms just see fraud as a cost of doing business.
Yep.
That's ethical, because at the end of the day, real end users, their clients, are being affected. Okay. And that, I think, is simply not right. And you're right.
Absolutely.
Some of these teams do need, maybe it's not the right wording in a podcast, but do need a slight kick in the ass. And,
kick in the ass is okay. This is Frankly Speaking with Sendra D. If you can't handle a kick in the ass term, this is not the podcast for you. But I want to point to the fact that the end users are not just the people who are affected. For instance, if you bank with, like Citibank, your account may have not been compromised, but they will actually incorporate the loss into future costs to the end user. So whether you were affected or not, it's just like an insurance company. You are eating up the cost of all the accidents that they've had to pay out. So it is better. I would rather pay for it and for preventative rather than having a big event. Well, they will come with an argument. So you're talking about, we know there's a need. So what is the challenge really? Because you're clearly showing us that there is complete 100%, 150% benefit to this product. What are some of the challenges that you've had to face?
One of the biggest challenges we face as a young corporation, because we're only just under 5 years old, mainly by these big financial institutions, is we know how to do it better. Right. And that's a culture thing. The second one is, yes, but will you still be alive in 5 years? It's the craziest thing to hear. You come with a solution and they wonder if you're alive in 5 years. Correct. So obviously the logical answer from my side is, look, we can put the source codes in escrow. We will install it on your server, so we have no access to any information, because that's the last thing I want, is to have access to information, and still they have to think about it. It's amazing.
It is amazing. But I do think that they're not visionaries to see the long-term benefits. They're short-sighted, and that really is what gets in their way. So, I mean, I would think that also is a selling point to differentiate themselves from their competitors, because if not everybody's doing it, you can actually promote yourself as the one doing it. Customers would feel safer knowing that this has been implemented within the firm. So talk to me about that. Is this hubris? Is it because they think it won't happen to them? It's just like when somebody gets robbed, people just don't pay attention. That's not going to happen to me. That's just not my house. And then everybody starts getting robbed. So talk to me about, what do you think psychologically is happening for these CEOs, leaders, directors that are preventing them? Because it's not cost, because it's in the end actually saving them money. Talk to me about that. What shift needs to happen there in order for them to actually embrace this idea?
In my view, the shift that needs to happen is always at the top. It's never at the bottom or at the middle level. What happens is most of the top leaders or CEOs of big financial institutions are not even aware of these things. I mean,
Right.
It's somewhere down the road and it becomes a number when it hits them. And if it becomes a number, it's just financials. The year looks great, whether we have 2, 4, or 5% of fraud, but the profits are up year on year. That's fantastic. Share price will still go up, right?
Right.
Somebody needs to tell them inside their own organization. And normally it's compliance, because compliance has become kind of a god in the last year since the 2008 crisis. In 2008, after the subprime mortgage, compliance became more powerful than a CEO. So we went from one extreme, which was not enough compliance, to too much compliance in the wrong direction. One thing is to say, yes, we need to do anti-money laundering checks. The other thing is, yeah, but what about, these are the bad people. That's fine. But what about the good people who are being affected? They're being defrauded, right? And these are your clients.
Absolutely. There are just so many attorneys in these firms that they all need a job. They think that if you come with this, they will have to lose their job because your technology will be so effective that all these attorneys will have to be job hunting. That's a thought. The second thought is maybe they're okay with money laundering. Maybe it's not a bad thing because there are a lot of big people who have a lot of money in these firms. You got to wonder why people are not so proactive. Maybe they are okay because every once in a while you see a headline, this firm is paying a penalty to the SEC because they have been engaged in money laundering activities for this terrorist group. Are you kidding me? Are you saying the KYCs that people fill out up front, people don't know who these customers are? I mean, that's a simple form. Any average person that goes to a bank fills out a KYC to know the customer. And then all of a sudden you're surprised that, oh my God, I'm entangled in money laundering. So that's what my point is, Jose, tell me, do you think they're kind of like adding that as a cost of doing business? Well, they'll pay something to the SEC. Maybe your technology is bringing too much transparency.
You got the point on the last bit of your comment. Bringing too much transparency sometimes gives a shock in the organization. And it could be that somebody will lose their job. But look, if he loses his job because of this technology makes it transparent, was because he didn't deserve it in the first place.
Right.
Now, my opinion is this technology is not about eliminating jobs. It's about protecting your clients.
Correct.
Regulation is already in place. Actually, we don't need more regulation for this.
Right.
What we need is application. They need to apply measures to protect their clients. Now, give you a typical example. We do a compliance, onboarding, KYC, typical things like sanctions check, but then we add additional things. For example, where is that person really located when he opens an account or when he creates an account, for example, with a regulated casino, which is no different than a bank, except regulation is even tougher when you're in the gaming industry compared to a bank.
Sure.
So we then added features like, we will find out in which country you are with our technology on your smartphone, whether you use a VPN, whether you remove your SIM, and even if you spoof the GPS, we'll still tell you 99% the right country. Now, these guys in particular, their CEO is somebody who does like compliance, likes to protect his clients, and wants to weed out the ones he don't need. It's not the case with all of them. So like I said, the whole industry ain't bad. I think most of the industry are good CEOs.
Yes.
Some don't know the problem. They just don't know it exists because their first level doesn't tell them. They come up just with financial numbers. You got to dissect the numbers and say, look, we got X millions because every bank, believe me, the number is always millions. The question is, how many? Is it tens, hundreds, or is it billions? Right?
Absolutely. So I think that's two things here. So it doesn't always happen this way, but I would think that the compliance team and the financial accountancy team need to work together, because the financial accountancy can keep track of the out-of-pocket costs as a result of these infringements, and also do some projections to see if we implement certain measures to prevent this in the future, this is how much we'll save, and provide that information to compliance. When you have a team, sort of builds more solidarity to present to the chairman and to the board to say as to why this would be a good measure. And at that point, they can have an informed decision rather than just, because I think what happens in compliance, they don't necessarily know the numbers and they're just thinking about, trying to just mentally imagine themselves just going, saying, well, we need to take some measures, but without presenting the proper numbers. I think so this collaboration between these two teams can be effective. And when you approach a company, do you go directly to the CEO? Tell us about your process. Do you go to the compliance team or to the financial accountancy team? Where do you start?
Yeah, normally we start with the compliance. Once we have them on board, then we ask them, can we have your CIO, your Chief Information Officer? Because the second worry will be, but we don't want anyone to access any information of our clients. So secondary will be the CIO. We have never succeeded to meet the CEO of a big financial institution so far. What we did,
Jamie Dimon is not knocking at your door?
Nope, not yet.
Mr. Dimon, if you're watching this podcast, and if anyone in the audience, can you put Jamie Dimon's direct line on the podcast? Of course, nobody's going to do that. But Jamie Dimon, this is an offer for you. We'll give you a discount. How about that? You can just tell them Sendra D and Jose will give you a discount, right?
Absolutely. What we did succeed is to make an agreement with a company who services those banks. It's crazy. You can't go in direct for whatever reason, but we managed to get into a company who provides software and consultancy to most of the banks.
Understood.
Now, they were blown away. Actually, it's a big US company. They're a $2 billion company. They're now private. They've been acquired just recently. Mm-hmm. And they got most US and European banks. So we're going to cooperate with them.
Fantastic.
To showcase our technology and bring them into the financial institutions. But for me, it's absolutely crazy why they don't listen in the first place direct.
Okay. They just don't understand. Well, it's the same thing with a lot of these companies are having to innovate and they're more focusing on how they can increase their revenue. They're going after more client base and they're more product focused, but they're not focused so much on the preventative measures. There are so many different ways where they can cut corners. They're so busy trying to bring in more revenue. And when you hear them talk, they're not talking about these issues. They're talking about, should we accept Bitcoin or digital currency? It's the wave of the future. We are now the leaders in this. And so I want to bring you back to what happened a few weeks ago with CrowdStrike, right? Mm-hmm. So were you concerned when that happened? Did you feel that would affect you at all when this whole CrowdStrike unprecedented event happened?
It would have affected us. I mean, the fact that it didn't is pure luck. I mean, there's only two big global companies that provide most of the cloud services. One is Microsoft with Azure, and then you have AWS of Amazon. These are two biggest ones. So this one affected the services of Microsoft in particular. We have all our infrastructure on AWS. So it didn't affect us at all. But then again, it's pure luck because they're both good companies and these things happen. Now, the fact that it happened once and a small mistake affected so many people globally, not just the financial industry, it affected everything from airlines, websites, you name it. Everyone who was on the cloud affected by Microsoft. Who says it's not going to happen with AWS? There is no guarantee. Absolutely no guarantee on these things. So I would simply say to big corporations, look, if you do have the profits, just protect yourself. Don't put everything just on one system. Have a duplicated system. It's no different than an airplane. They have everything duplicated. 2 engines. If this one fails, that one works. If this electronics fails, there is a backup. On a plane, it's not a single failure that makes a plane go down. It's a concatenation of failures. So on the banking industry, it shouldn't have been any different. It's not because one service provider on the cloud fails that your system should go down. You should have communication. So my advice is do that. Just do the same as they do on airplanes.
When someone is in your field and you're having to look at some of these, the worst of actions sometimes of humanity. So do you find that you actually have to seek out the help of those criminals to help you implement or test your device? How do you actually seek solid advice or to test your product? Because I know the FBI and a lot of these intelligence communities, they hire some of these hackers, they hire some of these criminals, they deal with them every day. I don't know the backstories of that. I watch a lot of movies. People like Julian Assange was a hacker, and we know how that ended. So do you actually have to have conversation with them to say, well, this is what I'm doing. Can you test this product for me? Do you proof your product with the help of people who actually try to penetrate systems? I guess that's what my question is.
Yes. I mean, to make a test, you need to do it at scale, at a reasonable scale. Okay. I mean, for example, when we made our test, we spent 1.5 million in just acquiring users online just to make this test. So it had to be real users to have a real sense across the board. Now, for a big bank, this is not enough because 1.5 million barely got us to between 30 and 40,000 users. And they made over a long period of time only 2.7 million transactions. A typical bank does that probably in a couple of hours in a day.
Correct.
So the first thing is a major bank needs to say, look, I want to test this and I'm going to do it with a small percentage of my users. But the small percentage, even if it's 1%, is a huge number. Okay? They should see not just the benefits to their clients who will be less affected, but they will see the benefits financially. And this is something that the compliance teams don't necessarily understand, which is if my clients are better off or better protected, I'm actually going to make more money because this is a cost of doing business. So if I can remove this cost of doing business, my profits will go up. It's straight bottom line. And you have happy customers. So the test has to be what I call at scale. We're actually in discussion with a bank. Unfortunately, it's not in the US, but we hope we will start a decent test in the next 4 to 5 months.
Why do you say, unfortunately, it's not in the US?
Unfortunately, I say because US is normally seen from the world, including from Europe. The US is seen as the technology hub in the world. If something is tested in the US and a major brand certifies, look, I got this technology, it's great, it does what it says on the box, it will have a ripple effect and then everyone wants to use it. Because if you make a financial benefit, basically that cost of doing business is gone, clients are happy, you have a competitive edge. Versus the other banks. So they cannot not use that technology.
I do.
This is why breaking the first horse to ride them is the difficult thing. This is the same in this industry. And we got one ace in the back, which is a technology we've so far not talked to anyone about. So I'll just tell you what it does, not how we do it. Okay? Well, actually, this is one of the reasons this financial institution wants to test all our technology. If you look at mobile phones, this is what people use in the vast majority of cases to open new bank accounts, digital accounts, instant gratification. Number one, as I told you, they can spoof your SIM, but phones can also be stolen. Give you a real number just from London alone, where I live. 90,000 phones got stolen about 2022. So the number is higher now. Now, that accounted for $1 billion in financial losses. Because as soon as they got your phone, the question is, how do they get in? Biometrics? Oh, that's great. Take your iPhone. If your biometrics don't work or you just shine backwards, it asks you for a PIN. Now, a PIN is easier than the biometrics, right?
Absolutely.
Once I'm in. Now I can change the biometrics. Now it's the criminal who adds his own biometrics. Next step, oh, guess what? When you click on your banking app, it will allow you to go in just by the biometrics, exactly the same one as you opened your phone. So if the criminal gets into your phone, he can get into your bank account. And basically that's what happened. They empty the bank accounts. So Everyone thinks it's not going to happen to me. Trust me, it can happen to
It
anyone.
can happen to you. Especially with these new apps, like in the US, we have Cash App and Zelle. And so Zelle is directly connected to your bank account. You may be sending someone, you think it's safe, it's Zelle, but it's just giving someone access. So we've been talking about banks. So when we look at social media, because everybody's on social media except for me, I have LinkedIn and Facebook, but I do it more for business purposes. But there are some people who are actually addicted to social media. They do everything on social media. Elon Musk has talked about Twitter being more known now as a method of payment. He wants people to consume. He's always thinking out how to monetize his platform. So people who do spend a lot of time on Twitter, it's not my cup of tea. But there are people who live and die by that platform who are now going to start using. So can you approach your social media platforms about this as well? Or do you still have the conversation is still with the bank, because technically they will have to go through a bank, right?
No, actually, the weakest link is always the problem. So even if Elon Musk with X enters the financial sector, and
Right, it's X now.
It's his dream. He wants to do payments. Right. If you do payments, then the bank is not anymore the weakest link, because the entry point will be that app.
Mm-hmm.
That is the weakest link. So securing that app not to allow unauthorized access to those accounts becomes more important. Now it's just social media. So if you hack social media, it's a shame. You probably get upset, but your money's still safe. If your social media becomes your financial app, that's a completely different story. So what I was telling you, the thing we got still down our sleeves is to protect the access to bank accounts or apps like X if they become a financial institution.
Interesting.
So what we did is the following. Somebody can steal your phone or hack your SIM and get into your phone. I want to decouple that from accessing your financial app or X when they do payments.
Mm-hmm.
How do we do that? So the technology we created, you mentioned at the beginning, we have 8 patents. Actually, we filed 2 more, which are on AI.
Congratulations.
Thank you. On artificial intelligence technology to do good. Why do I say to do good? Because it's on facial recognition and on liveness detection. AI is being used, unfortunately, a lot for bad and some good. I think the balance is not tipping in the right direction. Today, anyone can impersonate you or me with my voice, my face, can do every movement.
Frightening.
Yeah, I could do a video conference with my bank and impersonate anyone so long I find anything on social media. And it's easy. Everybody's on social media. So the technology we created does 2 things. It checks if the person is alive. What do I mean with alive? That it's not a picture in front of the camera or an AI generated impersonation of that person. It's not a screen. It's really me. Even if I record, the test that we've done is we actually take a real picture of ourselves, print it in a high quality photo, put it on a high quality 4K screen.
Mm-hmm.
It will say, nope, you're not alive. It's Jose, but it's not alive. So you can't get in. You see? So it's using AI for good. That's what I meant.
So what you call white hat technology, because there's always someone doing, so there are white hat hackers too. So those are with the people that you probably can align with to develop some technology. I think that's fantastic, because you're now going into the world of identity theft, because a lot of people, there are prominent people now who are at risk. I mean, of course, Donald Trump has been impersonated so many times. It's interesting on the topic of, are you the real person? There are these people who go around pranking world leaders. I think they're Russian, and they're going around pretending to be Volodymyr Zelensky when they call these leaders. How do you fall for that? But your technology can actually help people protect themselves from such pranks and from fraud. Prank is a different level, of course, of fraud. Fraud is a complete nightmare, especially if it's collective for a large institution. So this is going to be part of the patent that you're actually, is that going to be part of Rewire, or is this a whole new company?
No, it's part of Rewire, because what we saw in the last 12 months is that the fraud level got up exponentially.
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't figure out why. And we narrowed it down to AI. AI is the major cause of this going exponential in the last 12 months.
Mm-hmm.
This is why we developed this last technology, to keep our figures at the ones I told you before, because otherwise even our figures would start creeping up. So once we know the person is alive, and two, if it's the person, the owner of the account, and in this case, it could be an account of X if they become financial payments institution, or a bank. It could be any account.
Sure.
So nobody could log into your account. So if you go back to what I said before, payments is now regulated in Europe, and they have to do 2 out of 3 things: 2FA, PIN, or biometrics. And what they mean with biometrics, all of them in the world, means they use your phone biometrics. So as soon as we bypass that, you're done. They got into your account. So they will get into your X account or into your bank account. It's a real danger. The fact that this is my phone doesn't mean that once I go in, it's my bank account. You see?
Absolutely.
I can have stolen this phone. So now I open the phone with my biometrics all of a sudden. So it's my phone because it's stolen. Well, no, it's not your bank account. It's not your X account when you do financial transactions. So we actually check with real Face ID. We call it real because we don't really care if the Face ID biometrics or the fingerprint is of the owner of the phone. What we care is it the owner of the person who passed the KYC?
Mm-hmm.
And this is where you said compliance should on that job. Because if compliance did their job right, you wouldn't have had that many people passing the compliance checks.
Absolutely.
If you do all the checks, you're likely to catch most, if not all. I mean, it's never 100%, but you're really close to it. Okay.
I would say the difference between you and, and me and a lot of these compliance, employees, because that's what they are, they don't think outside the box. They just stay within the box of business as usual. We're just going to navigate life as usual. Unfortunately, the world is changing under their feet, and they're not waking up to the fact that today is very different than yesterday. And they're not, again, I talked about being a visionary. You have to be able to see into the future, to see what's coming, to be able to protect your company. Yes. So I would encourage the compliance professionals who are listening to this that you turn to professionals like Jose and his firm to fill in the gap where you are lacking. We're not saying you're not good at what you do. We're just saying that sometimes you need a second pair of eyes or brain to help you do the job even better. And so that said, is it because sometimes people are too educated? That's my point. I have been to school with many of these people. Sometimes their degrees, so their brain is so filled with academics that they don't see the common sense issues. What do you think?
I don't think they're overeducated. I think that they got complacent. Okay, in many cases. And complacency is not a good thing. It's not a safe thing. You should always assume the worst, I would say. Mm-hmm. And assuming the worst is the best for your company. Okay. So it's not a bad thing. Now, if you assume the worst and you're fixing issues, or you say, I got an issue I can't fix, I'm actually going to look out there, see if I can find a solution to this problem. And if I cannot find it, I'm going to finance small companies to find me a solution, see which one comes up with a solution.
Correct.
And I tell you, young, small companies have one advantage over big one. They have a disadvantage that they don't have much cash. They're always running low on cash. Yeah. But the advantage they have is
communication.
They're very efficient and they're not stuck by the multinational rules. I've been in multinationals for decades.
Right.
And it goes top down.
But of course, it boils down to the flow of communication. We all know that in these corporates, without saying it, there's like an unspoken rule of you stay in your division, you don't communicate. That's why I was brought up with the fact that they should be collaborating with accountancy, compliance, and cross-pollinating the world that they live in order to find these solutions. But unfortunately, people in accountancy don't know people in compliance, and it ends up a stalemate because nobody's making any movement or progress. But that said, I want to ask you, what is your process like when you go into this firm? They give you all the data? Do you run it through your system? Is that what happens?
No, not at all. We could do that, but that's something we don't want to do because it gives the wrong impression to them, because we would then have access to their data. So what we always propose is, look, we'll take our platform and install it on your server. Just give us an isolated instant, not connected to anything else internally. We'll install it there. Now you guys connect it internally. Test it. Use it for 6 months for free. And then tell me what you think. Compare it to the past.
It's a win-win. They have nothing to lose. So, Jose, are you saying that when you conduct your protocol, this is not going to go to the cloud? This is not going to spread the data across the world. This is staying within the firm, correct?
Yeah, exactly.
Staying within the firm. So there's no possibility for any kind of breach of data, for them to hack your system to access the company's data.
Yep, absolutely. It will be
completely safe.
Yeah.
So CEOs, listen to this. No breach. Your data remains in. So what is in Vegas stays in Vegas kind of thing. When you actually leave, you do not take the data with you, but you are somewhat providing them with the technology to do the in-house, to apply the in-house protocol themselves. Does your team incorporate one of your team members into the in-house team, or do you teach them how to use your technology?
Yeah, normally we train them. We train the team on the counterpart. For us, the financial institution is the client. We train them. Now, if they request that one of our team members needs to be there full time for 6 months a year, we're happy to do that. But we've not been requested so far. I think it's a shame because there is nothing better than having somebody next to you, a person, rather than on a video call all the time. The connection between people makes things so much smoother, and people get more open and more willing to help and more forthcoming. That's what I suggest. I mean, I tell you, in my past in multinationals, I had one amazing, fantastic boss, and I learned a lot from that guy. He was actually the one in Philips Communication. Okay. The guy told me one thing back then. He said, Jose, I don't care how you get to the objective, so long you get there and you get there on time and within budget. He said, the how, none of my business. He said, we have a problem. I'll tell you which one. If you find more, add them to the list and fix them. That is a good message from a top level executive.
Absolutely. True leadership. Trust in your people and come back when you get my results. That's it. None of this micromanagement, like, what are you doing? You know, what are you at to lunch? So yeah, I've had both kind of bosses. And I have to say, definitely the one that's always calling you, asking you what you're doing is definitely not the fun one. But I definitely want to bring you back to your goal and the market that you're operating in. It sounds to me like this is a new technology and there are not many competitors in the market. But do you see more penetrators now? Do you see more people, more firms like yourself trying to compete with you? And if so, what does that look like? How many people are in the space that you're in?
In this space, there are many that use the word anti-fraud. The question is, what do they mean with anti-fraud? Okay. I had several meetings with competitors because for us, it's good. We have our own clients, which we acquire online, so we can go and look at what competitors do. And we apply it and we use it. It's the best way to know how it works. For example, liveness test. It's a video. Tell you to look up, look left, look right, read a number on the screen. Can you imagine with AI today asking these questions? So for me, they're not at the top of the curve. Now, unfortunately, when I do talk to them privately after having a drink, they say, well, clients are happy with that. What they mean, clients, is financial institutions are happy with that. It ticks the box. I said, well, if it's about ticking the box, then we have a problem in the industry.
Yeah, okay? It's a bare minimum, right? It's not exceeding expectation.
Exactly. I said, it's not fixing the problem. Yes, it ticks the box. And yes, it complies with regulation. Do you do a liveness test? Yes, I do. Can it be bypassed? Yes, of course. But that's not solving the problem of your clients.
Correct.
Okay? So I think in the next 6 to 12 months, you will see corporations coming up with good solutions. And I think it's going to come from the smaller companies rather than the big ones. It just takes a big one to start using it to make this known. And the other ones will race to get a similar solution. Because imagine if we would get a huge corporation. I know you mentioned JP Morgan, but JP Morgan is probably one of the biggest banks in the world.
Right.
If JP Morgan were to use it and they would be satisfied and happy with it, how long do you think it's going to wake up the other CEOs?
Sure.
It's going to be very quickly.
Absolutely.
So it always takes one big one to take that decision. It's not easy, but if we succeed.
Absolutely. Persistence. And so I wanted to point out that because we have some predictions in the banking industry that there are going to be more banks failing. We had Republic Bank that was absorbed by JP Morgan Chase, and apparently more are coming. The government knows who they are, but they're just not made the bank public. So there's no frenzy of customers going out to get their money out. So I do feel that what could happen is if you have a small bank as a client or consumer, then they are absorbed by a larger bank. Then you're automatically grandfathered into the system, and that's your way in.
That would be a dream come true.
Well, I'm going to envision that for you, Jose. I'm going to see that because I see value in what you're doing, which is why I felt it was important that we do this interview so that people, the public, well, no, because people hear me talk about investing in it. We need to start thinking about the technology and how we talk about capital preservation. This is another form of capital preservation. Because it is so frustrating when you've been invaded by some fraudster or scammer who gets into your credit cards and you have to call the bank and they are charging. Anyway, all this. So that said, I do see value in what you're doing. And again, I reiterate that this is another form of capital preservation and time preservation, because a happy customer is a loyal customer as far as I'm concerned. And the banks have to understand that by protecting all their stakeholders, not just the ones that get a paycheck, the ones that actually make it possible for them to get the paycheck, because that's the most important thing. As I said to you earlier, one of my bosses says you get paid by the bank. I said, I don't really get paid by the bank. I get paid by my clients, because if I didn't have clients, I would not be in this business. You would not want me in your office if I wasn't producing revenue for you. And the only ones who can guarantee that is the customer. So I encourage everyone who has this type of system in place where that can be breached. Trust me, audience, that's going to be more common than you believe, because people are getting smarter. And they're starting younger. I mean, kids are coming out of elementary school knowing how to hack. This is a very strange thing. And if you have a criminal element inside of you, you're not going to be a good white hat. So for the average person, do you have, because you see this all the time, do you want to give some advice to those big banks in how to protect themselves? Give me 3 tips for the big banks or any corporations, how to protect themselves, besides just buying or signing up for your program. What do you suggest to them when you do a first-time consultancy? What do you suggest to them?
Okay, when I consult major corporations, I normally ask them 2, not even 3 things. Number 1, can you confirm which are the real problems that you have today? So forget about the solutions, whether you have a solution. The 2 biggest problems. And typically the problems they have are very different than the ones we think they have. They come up with completely different things, like, increasing my turnover, my revenue. Mm-hmm. Just to understand, where do they come from?
Right.
When you ask a compliance, which are the biggest problems they have, normally is the time they spend on doing compliance. So they want the same thing just to be done faster, not better.
Sure.
Just faster. Okay. Now, when you ask the CIO, he's only worried about the security of the back end.
Right.
Because he hears the story. Somebody was hacked. And I just told you about the previous one, 3 billion. Yes. People, that's a crazy number. They're worried about being hacked at the server side, but they forget a hacker doesn't need to get to the server side if I can go in through the front door. I go in through the app of your own bank. It's easy. And on top, you don't detect I'm in, because a fraudster or a criminal will either steal a phone or swap your SIM and just do a normal login to your bank account and empty it with all the credentials correct, and the 2FA that you send me is actually on the SIM that I swapped from you, and it's all confirmed on the server. So I don't even need to hack that. Right. And they just need to do that at scale. Now, for them, and then you have the second biggest one. Each have a different one, but all have one thing in common, which is customer complaints. Because that gives them a bad image. So they are worried about image, but they're not worried about the finances of their clients. they would take actions, right? So they're worried about the number of complaints. If there are complaints, that is not a good sign. So they want to have less complaints. Now, how do you deal with less complaints? Put more people to keep them happy? Or you fix the real root problems that they have?
Of course, the root cause.
Yeah. So first they explain us what they feel their problems are. Then we ask if the problems we believe are out there are also present in their company. The truth is, not everyone does confirm, even if they do have it. But they go away like, okay. So you say there is a problem in this industry with somebody else. Yes, these are the articles of some companies who at least admitted the problems they have on fraud and on criminals actually affecting the finances of their users. So they don't confirm or deny. That's already, for me, that's a good thing. Because if they deny, then it's no point continuing with that.
Sure.
So not confirming or denying for me is already a plus. And then what we do is we go straight, instead of going through too many deck presentations, we go, how about we show you? And we take our phone and say, look, this is my bank account. So how about you try to go in? I'm actually going to allow you to go into my phone with Face ID. Even if I add them to my Face ID of my phone, they will still not be able to go into my bank account. And then they go like, oh, wow. Yeah, well, yes, true. That's fantastic. But they don't understand technically what that means. So we need to help them, educate them, what it does for their client, what it does for the banks or X or whoever wants to protect.
All the stakeholders.
Yeah. So once they understand, you will gain financially as a corporation. Your image will be better because you will have less complaints. It's all a cascaded effect.
Absolutely.
That is the hardest part, the education to make them see, look, it doesn't affect only your division. It will affect his division, the finance division. It will affect CIO. He was worried they hack from this side and now they come in from this side. See, they only look at what their responsibility.
What's in front of them.
Like you said, all this top management would talk to each other and explain the problems they have openly between themselves. And they say, look, we have common problems here. Let's try and fix it. Let's come out with it. Like you say, it's just transparency. They don't necessarily have to publish the numbers to make them look bad. That's not necessary. But to explain, look, these are the problems. We're looking for a solution. And this is the contact. I promise you that they're going to have a lot of contacts. A lot are going to contact them. And then test them out.
Absolutely.
The one you least suspect is going to work, that's going to be the winner. Okay?
Absolutely.
It's not always big corporations. In our case, unfortunately, we have to pull back by going direct contact, and we're going through a big corporation who already has the banks as clients, and those meetings seem a lot more trustworthy. That's wrong. You see, that's wrong.
Absolutely.
But what I mean is they're not willing to listen to anyone who thinks they have a problem. And I'm not saying they have to accept 100 meetings, but they can do a reasonable filter.
Do the research. See what's available out there. Line up, put a request for proposal and have the people come and present and bid on the project. And you decide. You don't even have to accept any of the bids. But what I do say, though, I do feel when I was trying to get into the mindset and psychology of these people, it's because everybody's is thinking only about their careers nowadays. Everybody's just focused on their career and stepping up, and not so much the people they are actually serving. That's not just in banking and finance. That's in politics. So if you look at politics, I mean, I promised you I was going to talk politics. But if you look at that, everybody's out for themselves. Everyone is just thinking about their career. What's the next step? Am I going to be like, I'm an MP? Am I going to be a prime minister or a congressman, senator? Am I going to be I want to be president? No one cares anymore about serving, right? In anything. And I have this, I saw this in my family that they really were about service to whatever tasks they were at hand. I came from a diplomatic family and we were a team. My parents, their 3 children, we were the diplomatic family representing, and I was made sure that I didn't always comply, but I was told every single time, while you're here, the people in Washington, D.C., who we serve at the embassy is the reason why your father has this job. Not for you to be here and go to Georgetown and have fun with your friends. That's not why you're here. Anyway, I try to make that argument. But my parents were like, nope, let's make you understand why we are here. We are representing a country who contains citizens. So that idea is sort of, it's in every system, right? It's in politics, it's in a corporation. If you think outside the box and start thinking more, and I'm talking now to these employees, compliance, accountancy, wherever they are, think about why you're in that job. It's to do a job, not just for a corporation to exist, but without the people buying the product or opening checking accounts, you wouldn't have a job. So make sure that these people are served. But also, I want to take you back to the consumer side, because wouldn't you think that if we inform the public more about how they can have some leverage when they know that these products are available? For instance, those people who are now listening to this audience think, do you think your bank, put the name of your bank on there and see if you should reach out to your bank. I would like you to put your comments in and let Jose know, contact my bank. This is my bank. So put your comments in. So do you think this can be helpful in trying to make a corporation or a bank see the light of day as to the benefit of your product by having the consumer themselves tell them to get this product?
Oh, for sure that would work, but it needs to be at a mass scale. And
let's do it, audience. Let's do it. Let's get Jose's product, Mr. Merino's product, in every bank on this planet so that we can all feel a little bit more safer. Because as we evolve, humans, side by side with artificial intelligence, humans have there are two ways of thinking. You're either thinking about how my action is going to benefit someone or how my action is going to affect someone, or the other side of that is I'm just going to do what I have to do and I don't care about how it affects anyone. So those are the two sides of that coin. Well, I trust that your audience are more the altruistic type that care about their neighbor. But let's try to protect ourselves from the other type of person who takes action only to benefit themselves. And those are the people that you're trying to protect the banks from, Jose, correct? So
right.
I want the audience to help you get into every single bank, put your name in the bank. So in summary, tell us what the final thoughts. This has been a great episode, very informative. I could go on and ask you questions for hours, but we don't. I know you have to go. Tell the audience what you think is the most effective way to protect themselves from these negative outcomes.
Very difficult, because these criminals, I call them between brackets bastards, they're really creative. They're actually young people who are very smart, using their brains for the wrong thing, to scam and steal from other people. So it's very difficult to protect yourselves. But just a couple of recommendations. Be aware on social media. Imagine what information does one of these criminals need to get your SIM swapped or into your bank account. They need your birthday. They need your name, a couple more answers, and they're in. They will just convince somebody to swap your SIM, or they will access your account. They will access your phone, because as soon as your Face ID doesn't work, it will ask for a PIN. So the most commonly used PIN numbers, they use the top 100, and I guarantee you 90% they're in. It's not complex. So be aware. Don't use common PIN codes. Don't put too much on social media. Careful with the pictures, because you can put a picture and it may show a credit card or a debit card. Trust me, the quality of the phones are so good these days. You zoom in, they can just get access to your CVV code and they start using it online. So be careful. My message is, don't trust. Do not click on links that you get by SMS, by email. It's so negative, Sendra, that we have to give these advice to people. It's common sense, yet so many don't do it. And it's always thinking negative about the others. Always think somebody is out to screw you.
Absolutely.
They want to hack your accounts. They want to steal your money, get into your bank account, use your credit or debit card. So just be careful.
But also be careful where you're signing up online. A lot of these sites that give you trials, you put up your information and they capture that data forever. And sometimes those sites get hacked, right? As you were saying. So it's just a matter of beware all those free trials that you're trying to sign up for, and you don't keep track of who has your information. But I think this has been fantastic. Thank you so much. And so the advice to founders, how about the founders who have ambition to start a technology company? What do you have to say to them?
To founders, I would say this. This is my second. I did an exit on the previous one, as you mentioned. Now it's more for fun. The first company I founded, we were so focused on making money. I mean, honestly, that was the objective. We set our company to make money. Lucky we did an exit. And after that, you don't need to make money. You're fine.
Right.
Okay. So if I would do it over again, I would do it slightly different. Look for something you're passionate about.
Right.
That you think this is almost my hobby. I would do this for free. Because if you're a founder, trust me, you're almost going to have to do it for free because you're going to pay yourself very little. You're going to be short in cash. You're going to be always months or at best 6 months from going bankrupt, at least the viewpoint in the future. And you're going to bust your butt. I mean, you're going to work so many hours and sleep so little. So unless you're prepared to suffer, do not start a company. But if you do, I promise you one thing, you're going to have a lot of fun, whether you succeed or not, because it's all about the journey. More important than hitting the end point.
Absolutely. And it's also my advice to founders, make sure you have stable mental health because it's not for the weak, it's not for the faint of heart. Anxiety is definitely part of the equation. Sleepless nights. So I could say that to you as a founder myself. So Jose, I want to say thank you. So I know currently you are looking to expand, and just to wrap this up, I know you said your main focus has been the UK and the US, but where outside, what other continents, countries would you be open to installing your system? Latin America, Caribbean, Asia, is that all in your radar?
Asia, not so much yet, because we just don't have the resource. But South America, yes. I mean, again, because of the language, and we have an R&D team in south of Spain. So the link between Spain and South America is very strong. So South America is definitely our next target.
So not India, because there are 0.5 billion people. I mean, the last time I was in India, true story, I forgot to buy a SIM card at the airport to get an Indian. And my taxi driver took me some booth and he said, ma'am, you could get SIM card here. I said to them, that looks like a used SIM card. You want me to put this in my phone? He says, ma'am, it's okay. It's safe. I said, you know what? Take me to the hotel. True story. So yes, I've had a few adventures, but I'm also very cautious. You can get a cheaper SIM card on the side of the road, but always get it from the hotel. So Jose, when people are looking for you, how can they reach you? What's your website?
The website is rewireholding.com. You can go to the website. In the website, you have also a form you can fill in. We'll contact you accordingly. Now, those who have a contact in an institution of financial or the likes of X who want to do finances or any app that needs that account protected because of security reasons, the same technology applies. Feel free to give my email.
Absolutely. Anyone who's got the contact for Jamie Dimon and Elon Musk, who is it? Mark Zuckerberg? I got a list. Put the name on and contact, tell them I know how to get in touch with them. And I will make sure that Jose connects because we have to spread the word. This is great because we're so busy in the front end. Back end is just as important, if not more important. So that said, I want to say thank you for joining me from London. It's been a fantastic conversation. And I get always stimulated with new information. And you've brought so much to us. Of course, this is an open invitation, and I tell you to come back anytime. I want to see how your patterns of evolving and how you are spreading your footprint across the globe, making this a better and a safer world for all online users. Jose Merino, CEO of Rewire Holdings, thank you for joining me today. It's been a fantastic conversation. I hope you enjoyed it. Tell us what you wanted us to talk about more that we missed, maybe because I interrupted Mr. Merino, because, I can't stop talking. But thank you again for joining me on a Frankly Speaking with Sendra D podcast. Until the next time, have a good one.
Take care.
Oh, and don't forget, subscribe to Frankly Speaking with Sendra D's podcast and join us every week as we uncover the stories of those who triumphed over life-altering challenges to achieve not just financial success, but a richer, a deeper, a more altruistic life. It's about time we redefine what it means to be a truly affluent individual. Don't you agree? So come and join me. And let's be unstoppable on this journey called life. Because here, affluence isn't just a buzzword. It's a path to waking up to your authentic being.